Let me do a quick round of introductions, and then I'll hand the reins to Piers, who is sort of the brains behind this operation. But so as you know, we have this great idea, and there is a great need for a meta-analysis on literature or of literature on social loafing and free writing. And so we wrote a paper actually quite a few years ago, a meta-analysis, and even I think if I remember correctly, Piers, I think we even got a couple of best paper awards for it from different at different conferences. But then when we tried submitting the paper to journals, I think one of the concerns was that maybe we didn't include all of the studies. And so I did the search for the studies with a long time ago with one of the, there was like not an intern, so there was a visiting scholar who basically helped me with that. And to be honest, I never checked if she found everything or not. So she did it almost like basically an internship. And so when Piers started looking for it now a couple of years later, so indeed there are quite a few studies. And so based on the keyword search, Piers has identified something like close to 2,000 papers that seem to be suitable. Now, once we start looking at the actual full text, it seems like many of them don't contain usable data, but the original paper was, if I remember correctly, 78 papers. It looks like we'll have, even after we exclude everything that doesn't fit, you know, the criteria, we'll likely end up with a few hundred papers. So we'll likely triple, quadruple, maybe even more the data set, which is obviously, you know, something we should have done in the first place, but, you know, here we are. And so one of the problems with papers of this kind is that the coding and processing the papers takes a lot of time and does require a certain level of, I don't know, skills, intellect, commitment. And so we tried with Piers. Piers has published, I don't know, at least a couple dozen of meta-analyses. So he knows better, but in my experience too, if you work with people who do it sort of for money, so to speak, you know, like one of your assigned teaching assistants or research assistants, in many cases, they don't take it seriously enough. And so they make mistakes. In fact, I was going through one of the papers coding for one of my other projects. And so it's more or less accurate, but there are like 30% error rate. And at that stage, you know, if it's so many, it's, you know, most are fine, but there is still significant, you know, amount of errors. And that means I need to check every paper anyway. And at that stage, I'm like, you know, maybe I should have just done it myself from the beginning, because it takes a lot of time to sort of, you know, prepare the team, train everyone, make sure that everyone's doing it consistently. And so at some point we thought, since it's a lot of work, we need some help. We want to go with people who want to be co-authors. So people who are intrinsically motivated in the outcome, not people who will be paid by the hour and, you know, don't care what the outcome is, but people who are vested in trying to do it right so that we all publish this paper. And so we have some helpers here. So Piers and I, and there are a couple of other co-authors who helped with the write-up of the paper originally. Now we have another person from New York, a professor who has some students assigned to him. And so they may be able to provide some help with more routine tasks, such as, like, for example, they already downloaded most of the PDF files. So we already have them. It took a lot of time, but, you know, it's a simple task. They just downloaded title by title. They will be able to help us attach the PDF files to the system that Piers built to improve coding. But we need help of people like you with the actual coding. And then Piers would be the one who can then rerun the analysis. I can help with the rewrite. We'll see if our old co-authors are still available, because one of them is retired now, and the other one probably will be interested and will help. But yeah, that's where we stand. And so I guess, Piers, I'll turn it to you. So if you need to say anything else in general, but more importantly, in terms of the next steps. And Piers, one more thing as an update. So I did meet with Charles today. He called me with Theo, and he said, just like last summer, he will have, he doesn't know how many, but there will be several undergraduate students assigned to him as helpers for any kind of work. For them, it's a summer internship, I think they call it. And so he said, if there is any help or any need in maybe attaching the PDF to MetaHub or anything else, it would be available for that work starting in about a week. So I'm not sure if we need that help, but he said there may be that kind of help available in addition if we need it.
Okay. Well, I can share it. Is the sharing screen open?
Yeah, let me see if I can just make so that everyone can share. So everyone should be able to share now if needed.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, like 20 years.
By the way, Piers, these are the students you were the guest speaker last summer in the course they took with me.
I recognize, yeah.
Yeah. So
I recognize them, right?
Several months ago. And so that's the same students All of them took, I think by now, 2 courses with me. So very, very reliable, diligent, at least when it was for a grade. Hopefully it will be the same here. So highly recommend. But yeah, you've met them before, I think.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at this. I mean, it's been doing this for a long time, and it was never easy the way we did it. But with enough kind of dint and effort and patience, you could kind of climb the top of this kind of any of these mini mountains of academic topics, right? And like when Vas was way back when he was taking my class, one of the first people to take my class, I was just the other side of being a professor, and he was just the other side of being a student. So not a lot of years between us, but there I was teaching a course and he was taking it. He did his first one, which later became the JP's first monograph in like 15 years. And he did that largely by using an Excel spreadsheet, which, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I mean, they tried to use Excel spreadsheets to determine who was getting a vaccine in the UK, not realizing the 64,000 row limitator on it, right? And yeah, if you're involved in doing databases for a large organization, which has life and death consequences, you shouldn't use it. Well, it came to us that this Excel spreadsheet, which I had been using too, though I had created a little bit more sophisticated version of it in an ingestion form, couldn't hack it anymore. And the reason why is something like this. Now it's for social loafing, right? And I could actually put that in brackets and actually get that number down a bit. So let's search for that. All right, that's a little bit more, but maybe that's a little bit too much. I'll put in procrastination. That's one of my other jams. Okay, so here it is, procrastination, about 7,000 to 8,000 results. But if we just take a look what's been done, let's say in the last 5 years, right? It's half, right? And you could put that in almost anything. You can see this almost exponential curve of it just kind of going through. So when we open it up, it goes from 3,580 to about 7,000. So just past 5 years, it's doubled. So if you can think about when Vas, you did your thing was about 2007, right? You're looking at about
right on that time,
80–90% of all research being done, in the last 10 or 15 years, right? Which means it's a double and double and double, right? So if you thought, Vas, how long did it take you to do that with your Excel spreadsheet?
It was probably in hundreds of hours, just the coding itself. It's very, very
coding, and it was very, very difficult. So it can't really be done this old way anymore. So we're devising some infrastructure around it. And one of the infrastructures we've been devising is called Hub Meta. So a lot of different topics. And within this kind of any type of basic overview, I'll go to the free writing one, you have this type of system. This is called a Prisma System. That's an acronym for meta-analytic transparency method. So you kind of feed, it's a funnel here. It doesn't look like it, but it is. It's like a series of filters. So the funnel gets put in here. Then you take away the duplicates. Then it gets into title and abstract screening, which is a kind of a loose kind of get the gravel out type of filter, loose mesh. Then once you get the gravel out, you go in and actually look at the full text. And then finally, after full text, they go in the meta-analysis and you start coding them. So
in our case, if we look at our specific study, so we already did the search, right? And so we identified close to 2,000 papers or something like that. Then
and here's the search, and you look for different search on the society reference search, right? So one of the typical ways you do it is that you find all the measures. So if somebody studied social loafing, they probably used a measure of social loafing, or one of the synonyms, which include free writing, withholding effort, knowledge sharing, and it stacks up. And you kind of learn that there's sometimes as many different terms for a phenomenon as there are researchers doing it, which makes science really, really difficult because everyone basically has their own language and you got to learn them all, which is a hassle, to say the least. It's called the Commencement Problem. A lot of people call it the apples and oranges problem, right? But one way is by looking at finding out what the different measures are. This is one that's a little bit more we did in Procrast. You look among multiple databases with multiple terms. And this is basically, you're trying to kind of minimize your type 1 and type 2 errors. But of course, they're kind of exclusive. The bigger search you're going to get, the more likely you're going to get the articles, but the more noise you pick in at the same time. So search itself is actually quite difficult because basically academic search engines are crap. Famously so. They're just like, I mean, the publishers basically have been bleeding us dry while offering a really shoddy product in return and taking home what they're laughing it off from their yachts. They make more profit every year than Google in terms of percentage. So they make about $2 or $3 billion, about 40% return in a riskless product. Anyway, we have to deal with it. So we have these algorithms which go through and look at different databases, searches them, and then you get into your title screening. So at this point, we actually had 6,972. So there's a couple of different ways of doing this. You could either be a reviewer or a researcher. So right now I can add some words here: hiding, loafing, writing, I can say maybe hiding. Did I get hiding knowledge? Yeah, I did do that. Free, I'll put in that one for free writing. And now let me get rid of the ones which filters, right? And get rid of the ones where I've already made a decision. So I'm just looking for ones I haven't decided yet. And so these ones have a yes or no beside them. Now, you can take a look at this one and you can think about addiction, weakness of will, just plain ill, or something in between. Does that sound like it's about social loafing? No, I would say you're right.
Probably not.
You might notice that somebody else also suggested I should reject it too. Here's one about clinical nutrition and clinical care. Glaucus, parental. Wow, I wonder how these got in.
So Piers, at this stage, what percent of, from your experience, if the paper contains the words that we need, but you start looking at the titles to better understand what the paper is about, what percentage do you think normally gets dismissed as unsafe?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've seen people run this way too hard. I do a select out rather than select in.
Mm-hmm.
So I get rid of the obvious bad ones, and I could go through this, and I could go to all the way up to all 7,000 if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that because that's a lot of work. So you can see AS review here. So I'm going to turn that on. Now I've activated my artificial intelligence machine learning unit, which is now going through, and as you can see, it's reordered them. Basically by whether it thinks mostly whether I would accept or reject them. So if I go actually to the second page and back, it'll be even better. Here we are.
But at this stage, we'll probably exclude at least half, if not more, because you right away see that some of these are not empirical papers. Some of them are more from like healthcare or economics. So not exactly the type of social loafing that we need for our study, right?
Yeah, we're still updating it a little bit, so I have to rerun it this way. It'll be ready in a day or two. There it is, the AI decision. All right, so here's from the AI decision. That's one of the glitches. I have to do it that way rather because it gets caught up in a little bit of a loop inside when we're fixing that next day. So it's going to tell me about almost it's actually, these things are reversed, just a little glitch again. It's going to tell me about half of the remainder ones should be thrown away, 3,000. And it will have a comment here. So I can go now and I'm going to go into discrepancy. And please, not discrepancy, decision. And
So wait a second, are you now using AI to do title screening? Because that's something new, I didn't see this.
yeah, AI, it's a new thing. It's still a little bit, it'd be not working exactly the way we want it. It works like 90% of the way we want it. But this kind of actually helps order it. So the idea here is that we go through, and then when we've had so many rejections in a row, like 50, we're in the long end of the tail. You might do that with Google Scholar when you're going through and you see a couple of pages and you think, the rest is junk, right? You're in the long end of the tail. So we're getting into that. So we're doing this part by the researcher driven. So the role of monitoring and shirking, right? Shirking, but that sounds in loafing. That's definitely one. I'm going to keep that one in. Remembering as a social process, I'm going to say no. It's still guessing a little bit. And so there's an area at the start, which we already went through, which was really good. And there's going to be an area at the end because it's rank ordering them, which is where it's almost 100% correct. So if I go to 300, all of these are going to be rejections. Reject, 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 face-to-face, reject, reject, yeah. And it's getting it all right. But of course, there's a place in between where it gets a little confused.
So some of them, yes, like A Place for Summer, A Narrative History of Tiger Stadium. I mean, obviously it's not on social loafing in teams.
So I just have to get up to the place where it's all rejected. It and me are now simpatico again. Right, and then I just say, choose all the ones that basically say reject, and then I say reject all of them then through the next stage. Okay, this is the next stage. So I don't know. I think we got about maybe 1,000 more to go through to get it up to
So Piers, do I understand correctly? So for the title screening, then you got that covered. We don't really need help.
That's right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So just so that everybody knows what the stages are.
That's right, just saying. So this, though, it's a feed-through system. So it went through this rough type of mesh, and now it's going into the find mesh, right? And this one is basically where we upload PDFs and we actually open up the article. We see, is there the data there we want, right? So, and this is kind of gets a little bit about, well, what is the data we want? What is exactly this is about? And it's any type of withholding effort, any type of, where somebody is choosing not to put in as much as they should in a team kind of environment. And for the first few, right, we're going to go through and make sure we're all on the same page, because sometimes it's a little bit ongoing, right? And we kind of go, wow, it's a new way of doing it. Might be a paper. Should we have that in or out, right? So sometimes we actually are developing the criteria a little bit. But for you, it's going to look something more like this. And we go to title screening. Oh, that's interesting. Clear. Here it is. Okay, so it's going to be yes, no, maybe. And you're going to have a couple. This is what a reviewer looks like. And so if we have a couple of people looking at the articles and saying it has data, and we look for discrepancies between multiple raters, that's also necessary for Prisma. And so when the people say, and we take a lot more time up front to make sure we're all calibrated, we have a calibration period. And we look for any discrepancies and we talk them through until eventually, and we do this on a pretty frequent basis, so nobody's going off on their own tangent, until we're all basically on the same page, and then we still continue doing it. And we get through once we have all these things, into data entry. Now, there's also a contact list there, as you might see. Now, a contact list is where it does have the data, but they don't report it, which happens sometimes. We're looking correlational, and you see some things when people do a regression, they just give the beta weights, right? So with that, we now have a ARM system, right? Which is, here's ones we've got kind of flagged to ask for more data, right? And we can do this in multiple different sections. So we try and capture the person's email and what do we actually want them for. Something we're ongoing. You ever have a customer relationship system or customer relationship management? This is author relationship management. All right, so then.
So now, Piers, so do you think in our case we may need to be contacting the authors for additional data? Like, are we planning to go that far? Because that's what I did in the first meta-analysis.
Ideally, yes. And it's usually we can put some parameters around this. And it's like if it's been in the last 5 years.
Yeah. From my experience, by the way, so when I contact them, some people were very happy to share the data. Some sent the full data sets that I didn't even ask for. But many would say, oh, it's been a long time. I don't have a copy, went through computer change, cannot save. So, you know, many people, I don't know if they just don't want to share it or really lost the data, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and the norms around open science have changed a bit since then, but so that's why we usually live in it to 5 years or so. Right. So if the paper is within 5 years and they should have reported the data, but they did not, then we'll kind of go and ask for them. We're trying to keep in track on that. That's something, again, we're ongoing. This is a this platform has grown and been refined by leaps and bounds, but I still see areas where it can improve. And I think it has at least another year or two of development personally, but it's good enough we can sail it, right? So once it gets through full text screening, and this is where people would need, for example, to go in and add you just simply add the PDF here. So look for them and add them. And that way we can all look at the same thing at the simultaneously. And we can also, for example, if I want it in another page, will it work if I do there? Or no, it only works on the next one. Okay, interesting. Here, for example, when I'm doing coding, yeah, there it is. Now it's opening. I have it in a different page, so I can move this over in a different screen and have what I'm going to be coding here in one page. It's all nice. So you don't have to go in and look for PDF, go to EndNote or anything like that. Everything's in one place. And then with the coding, would actually go in and add the coding. Now that's going to be the hardest part of it. But right now we're going to be doing the full text screening. So that involves either getting the PDF or opening up the PDF and scanning and seeing if it has data or data we can obtain. And if everyone says yes, it goes into data entry. And then when data entry, I'll do one for you if you want. I was doing one recently. Sort by last modification. What was I doing last? Yeah.
So Piers, maybe at this stage we want to say a few words then why some papers qualify and some don't, or what kind of papers.
That's exactly, yeah. And we should actually focus on that. Yeah. So when we go through, we can go to free writing, and we go into full text screening, and we look for it. Let's say this one, right? It's being rejected. But I can go through and see whether it has data or not, and what, for example, it actually is measuring. So it's actually kind of looking for any type of measure or anything along the particular lines of social loafing, free writing, withholding effort, withdrawal of effort. And you might find a new synonym, right? That happens all the time. that somebody uses a
So
different
we
type.
basically, if I may here, so we're looking basically for papers that tested with numbers, the two sides of the, well, almost three sides of the equation when it comes to free riding. So side one is what predicts social loafing. So
Yeah.
men versus women, young versus old, personality profile, cultural values, experience, age, nationality, IQ, CQ, EQ, whatever we can find. So one of the sort of papers or one of the components will be what predicts social loafing. And so here we will be looking essentially at anything and everything that can correlate with it or not correlate. And so it would be basically any sort of association that the paper reported.
That's right. Anything, the
Correlation, F score, T score, just about any type of association.
That's
The
right.
other side of the equation is what social loafing leads to. And again, so in the original paper, we looked at things like burnout, performance, organizational social behavior, satisfaction, just about any type of outcome in a work group. And so again, the question here is if social loafing happens, what kind of outcomes can we expect? And so we found that it damages all kinds of things.
I would even take just a reliability score, like why not, right?
Yeah, of course, we want everything. So once we find that correlation, so if we can find the measures, so where we would record, what scale did they use or what kind of experiment did they run? In most of the cases, the experiments go like, for example, let's say they want to see if the design of the work itself reduces or increases social loafing. So they will say, okay, we're going to observe each person individually, or we're only going to observe the whole team. And so, whatever the measures they use, or questionnaires, or perhaps, experiments, and often they will have, the scale name, the reliability of the measure. And so we want all of that, but we are looking for papers that have the numbers.
Yeah, that's going to be for data entry. So this part is more, yes.
There will be many papers that talk about it, but don't really measure it. Or maybe in some cases they cite work of others, but they didn't really do any own, data collection. So we don't want those. Yeah. And yeah, once we have those two blocks, the third one will be moderation analysis. So we'll find that some studies found a positive effect, some studies didn't find. Like maybe some studies found that men are more likely to to engage in social loafing, and other studies found that they didn't. So we'll look at why there is a difference. Maybe it depends on the country where the study was conducted. Maybe it depends on the age of the sample. Maybe it depends whether or not it's a published in a reputable journal or not. So we'll then get those data about the papers themselves later on and use those as moderators.
That's right. And we'll have to that's going to be in data coding. Now there is still a extra step here. When I say no, right, I have to give a reason for it. You ask me why, right? Well, that's a good question. Because let's go back to overview. Let's go to details. And I push full screen here. It actually starts building out the reasons why you gave it, how many. So we can go here and take a look at, let's say, Prisma diagram. And here, there's a whole bunch of them. But you can see with reasons, you have to give the reasons. So this is actually kind of difficult to do, right? So when we actually go through, we actually need instead of using a laborious spreadsheet, we're actually having in this particular way. So when we go to full text screening and we say that we don't like something, we actually have to be able to say why. And then when there's discrepancies, we have to be able to resolve them. But it's not, that's about it. So we can see how much people are doing. It's all very transparent. So when people kind of sign on, we can actually go and take a look at it. But once it's through here, so remember, we got the articles, we title screen them, we full text screen them. Sometimes if we say no to something, like for example, this one, and I might say no, but I might say, I might give a review or theory article. Later on, I could look for all the theory articles. And that will be helpful for write-up. And so let's say we need a case, we need an example here. Let's go and look for case studies. And since we've already sorted them, makes it real easy. basically, it's, it's like sorting your Lego bricks by color, right? So it's, which now lets us to kind of build things together later. So this is just all some brick sorting stuff. Then, okay, so that's where we're going to be kind of focusing mostly here. But the next stage after that is going to be data entry. And there's not a lot of data entry here because we're not quite there yet. So I'll go to one which has more data entry. And that's this one. We've been doing a lot of data entry for this one. I think we're up to about 600 articles, which is, how much was in the monograph? 400, 350?
I think we had close to like 700 there or something.
700, wow, that's a lot.
678.
Yeah, that was, well, we're gonna have, for this one, we'll have like double that easy.
Yeah,
So
and it was a very broad topic. It wasn't on culture in general, so I think it's not surprising that we had more in that one. So this one
Also,
is more specialized.
old way of doing it was basically what I would call butterfly or bow tie. So, like, for example, I had one on procrastination. So it's, nature of procrastination. This is my first one, which I did when I was a PhD student. So, so we can take a look at it, right? Did this when I was mostly in Minnesota. But you can take a look at the way it goes. And it's just columns, right? So it's procrastination with neuroticism, procrastination with self-efficacy, procrastination with self-esteem, procrastination, so this with that, this with that. So that's why the butterfly. So you can think of antecedents one side and a whole bunch of wings, lines which make a wing on one side and consequences on the other. And it looks like a bit like a butterfly, right? So it's that's what. But that's not really what they want. What they want is something more like this, which is a full correlation matrix. Because once you have a full correlation matrix, has anyone taken a structural equation modeling class?
We talked about it in my course, so not everyone sort of chose that as a method to learn, but they know what that is.
So here we've gone through the system. Everything's being title screened. We're in the process of full text screening. We're simultaneously be doing data entry. And you saw some of that information in there. And so now, as it's filling up the database, now we can just draw upon the database and simply create correlation matrices, which means, right? So that's a correlation matrix, right? Oh yeah, you're getting it, Ben, right?
Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, that is very cool to do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you that if you have to do it by hand, it takes 10 times as long, and the worst part is that you're prone to make mistakes. So the fact that this thing kind of automates it, it not only saves you a lot of time, but it also reduces the errors rate.
So I can look at conscientiousness and procrastination, right? And it has some of like the SAM-D ones. This is kind of considered a little high, right? And I could look, we just got this one working. This one is a real kind of doozy. It's like 14 standard deviations, 22 standard deviations away from the mean because you got a nice big positive number.
Are all the ones on the left the journals that it's pulling from? All the articles that it's using? Those? Or is that what those are?
Those are just the titles. Right?
There's the titles of all of it. Wow, so it can sort it out that way too. That's
yeah, but I can just click on it and I'm boom, there I am, right? And then I can see the exact one I'm at. And then if I have the article there, I can just double check real quick, right? And see what's up with that one. All right, but the idea behind this is once we have this and we have all the kind of, we're filling up a database. So now the idea here is to move science. So this is like in 10 years, nobody's going to do this anymore. Right? It's all going to be done. Everything's going to be coded. into a giant database, which we can then create giant structural equation modeling, which means we can now predict anything, right? And know what all the moderators are and future habits, right? We did a couple ones like this. We did one on job performance and the predictors of it, and then figured out what moderated the correlation between job performance. And then, so we were able to build instant selection systems for any company based on any kind of subset of predictors they want. You think that would be marketable? I really like, wow, it's not. So, but we still have doing a paper on it, and showing that if people adopted it and did what they're supposed to, we'd allocate human capital just so much better. And we would improve GDP in the United States by about 5 trillion a year. So if you want to, I can send you the paper if you want to see it too. But that's a application of this technology, right? So it's just putting it all together. And then there's, I'm thinking ahead a couple steps beyond that too. But now I'm having to execute all my steps. So I've gotten this far. So hopefully it all goes well. And the idea behind it right now is to make a couple of papers that are going to get the world's attention. So we're going to go for the biggest meta-analyses in the world and the best ones and things that no one else can do. And this is just one of them, right? So there's a lot of different ones that we actually have, a lot of different teams. And some small ones, some bigger ones, some people are using them, as well as a lot of independent ones. About 300 people are doing it in their own projects. So, and I'm just doing my stuff to see, I'm stress test this one. This is about team diversity, which I think would be, timely and probably get some news, and updating my procrastination one. But you're right, Ben, you got it.
Sorry, is that the Wonderlic, like the NFL test that they give the
Oh yeah, that's right. So that was because, yeah, that's an interesting paper too. I just sent that out to JP, but it was retesting the relationship between general mental ability and performance, because most of the stuff we've got, believe it or not, are from the 1950s. Mm. So what you have is probably the one you're basing on is the 1980 Hunter kind of meta-analysis, which was based on a tape that he got, magnetic tape that he got from the GATB, which he got from the United States Labor Bureau. And that itself was all based upon their validation work in the 50s and 60s.
Wow.
And we went through, and the Wonderlic has a really, really nice database that has been updating. It's job applicant pool variance. So the difference is what they've been doing is correcting for national level variance, which is this big. And job applicant pool variance is this big. And the people in the job is this big. So if you correct from this big to national level, your correlations go through the roof. And now we said, yeah, general mental ability is, the most important predictor of performance, because the way they're correcting it. It's still very important. It's just not nowhere near that. And if you use that, the diversity validity dilemma and how much it impacts the Black community also shoots up. So we're going after their sacred cow with that one. And but I think they're going to be in a hard place, because I've tied it all up together with, the Black Lives Matter movement. And, I'm going to see if they can get out of it, but I don't think they can. I really wrapped that one in a good knot. Cool. So I think they're going to have to revise this one, which I like. All right, so that's it. But there is still one other thing here. We're going to have to set it up when we get ready for data entry. Here's settings. Of course, the members can come in and we give you memberships, different reviewers, right? The workspace one is the big one. So for procrastination, I just said, let's do everything. Let's do every variable that's ever been done with procrastination. So if you want to know what that looks like, it looks like this. And give it a moment to load, and there it is. So you have agreeableness, and these are all the individual measures of agreeableness, which I click on. Of course, I can see because that's the way it works. We had some font problems earlier, which we fixed, but there's still some legacy issues. And it goes into agreeableness, and then it goes into a superordinate or agreeableness.
So what are those numbers, like 39, 14? So what does 14 stand for?
69 times used. 69 estimates are based upon that.
But it reports also somewhere the effect size here, or
No, this is just to show the
like the
construct,
map of?
the map of, right? So this is one for conscientiousness, right? You have industriousness, and so you can measure it at the individual level or the actual measurement, and we can make choices later. Let's say, oh, that shouldn't be there. Let's take that out. We take it out, recalculates all the composite scores automatically, right? So, and everything's super transparent. But certainly is a lot of them, right? So we may have.
Since I know some people need to leave at top of the hour, so we booked it for 1 hour. So then in terms of our next steps here, so what exactly do we need help with?
Right now, don't have the data entry ready, right?
So we'll take a few more days to get all of the PDFs into the system, or?
Well, that'll take like and to go through and open them up and look and see whether they have data or not and give the reasons for it. That'll take a while. But while we're doing that, we should be actually thinking about what type of the moderator variables you all want, right? And of course, again, you can
Do I
add
understand it correctly then? So for the 3 students, co-authors here, so we'll see how things go. But so at this time, then they wait a little longer before we get everything ready, or can they start helping with, I don't know, moving the PDFs into the system, or?
They can start with moving the PDFs in the system, and they can start by going through and determining, for example,
So title screening, you said there is no need, we don't.
yeah, don't bother with title screen. Just
But then
focus.
checking maybe the full text to see if there is any usable data before we code. So maybe we can start with
So
that.
that you're at full text screening, so we'd add you as
Do we have
member
enough
right now.
PDFs in the system already to maybe start doing the full text screening while more are being added, or what's the?
Yeah, we can do that. So everything can be happening simultaneously, but I would have to invite you. So do you have a?
Maybe I can send you the email addresses for the convenience. I think I sent an email.
Well, they would have to register themselves, right?
Oh,
It would
okay.
go to their emails and then they would click and say yes. Have you registered for yet?
I can register.
All right, well, just give me a shoot when you've done it, right? And then you'll be in and I'll just add you. So I have to add you here. You're going to be doing full text screening. And we'll be kind of going through, and we should meet regularly to talk about discrepancies, especially at the beginning. And VAS can also really be handy about talking about what is in scope and what papers are out of scope.
Yeah, I think once we get to the actual task, I would almost prefer to sit down with one or several of you at a time and maybe check together like a couple dozen papers. So to develop a good sense of what's suitable, what's not.
You want to err on the side of keeping it in, because once we start putting data entry and we say, hey, there's no data here, we just say, well, reject.
Yeah. But yeah, once you've done like a couple dozen, you have a pretty good idea what you're looking for, and
So you want,
much
100,
faster.
I would say, yeah. So then, but during this is happening, VAS.
All right, I'm gonna say that real quick. For Heather and Glenn, it's really easy because you can use UNC or your UNCG emails. It's connects with Google, so it's the same email from before. Just letting you know.
It verified me, so I should be.
It was. Yeah,
This is going to be a hassle, but it's at the beginning because we have to add the measures. That is one of the next steps, which is we've downloaded all the APA psych tests, all 60,000 measures. And then we want to run them through a cluster system so they create their own groups, more or less.
But
And
so Piers, but still, so would it be then more efficient to start right away, or do you think it would be better to wait a little longer before everything in place? What's your one thing that you should know? So all three of them have comprehensive exams. You said end of July, basically, right? So until then, they are relatively available. Then it will be a while when they will be not available at all. And then we'll see how things go once the semester.
oh yeah, they can work. I mean, it's just when you're filling up your measurement, right? It takes a little while. So if I want to add a measurement, right, I cannot give it a name. You know, it's like free rider. I want to add it, describe it in such a way that somebody would remember it. So to leave, right? And maybe I'll give it 1988, right? And then I said, okay, great, free rider measure to leave 1988. That's a stub. But I could add a whole bunch of stuff, the full definition here. And I can also give the citation. Citations are great because that's a firm record connecting it to the measure. And eventually we're going to have it so it reads the PDF, because we can always do cross-ref and have all the references there. And so this is just one database merging with another. If you mentioned a measure in that study's paper and we can make a hit between them, then we can have suggested measures, but we don't have that yet. So, I told you, there's still stuff I'd like to do, but it's
Piers, we can probably take the paper we already have and look at what kind of measures we had there. So I
Yeah,
cannot
so,
imagine
yeah.
that we have many new variables anyway. We'll have
So
more papers, but
at the beginning, we're filling up all the measures, but it's like the 80-20. Eventually, we'll have most of the measures there. And, we can handle, as you can see, we can handle 1,000 of them, but I don't think we'll be using that many of them. And we could decide easily whether they're in scope or out of scope, right? Whether we want to kind of be, because with this many, the system is designed that there is no technical reason why you can't add another measure. It's just, whether you want to be able to write about it. And we also would want to decide whether those things represent a broader construct. Right? Are we going to call social loafing and free riding the same? Or are we going to make
well,
them...
we have what social loafing, free riding, sharking sort of falls into that one. Withholding effort in teams, I've seen that expression.
Yeah, so yeah, it depends. And now you're kind of how you're going to make the taxonomy. You can make it the measurement level and free riding as a construct, and they all kind of group into a superordinate construct. Right. And so you can.
So for this step, how would it work then? So we open the paper that we know that contains the data, and then we need to populate that list of constructs beforehand, or we can do it.
Yeah, that's right. So you don't have to do it beforehand, but you have to have the measures. So when I go in here and I'm looking at this measure, right, these ones.
So that's where you, so what would you record here? Can you open one so we can see what's being recorded? So correlation.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm getting the mean, standard deviations. If it has 1 to 5, I can actually put everything in a common metric if I have this information, but I don't always need that. And then you can see at the bottom, these are all automatically generated constructs and group constructs.
What are those group constructs and constructs? Okay.
Yeah, and they're doing it through just basically a standard composite score math, right? So once if you know all the intercorrelation.
What is M? Is that manual or?
No, so yes, it's automatic. Everything in gray is automatic.
Oh, so yeah, but M on top. So some of them have C for construct.
Oh, that is a measure. These are the direct measures. These are the constructs.
Okay.
Right. And these are, so if you have this measure of extroversion, you can either analyze at the measurement level, right? Agreeableness and BFI, the BFI level. So that's what I just want to say, the BFI measure. I have it there, but really I probably want to measure it at the construct level, which will be composed of a whole bunch of different measures of extroversion or of agreeableness or whatever measure I'm looking at. So when I go here and I'm looking at this visualization, right? it also represents, each one represents a level I could actually analyze. So I could measure at this level, the BFQ, a particular measure. So some people might say that measure is different from this one. Or what were your measures? And I said, well, here they all are. Everything is completely transparent, right?
Well,
These are all the measures. And some people say, well, this one's different from that. Well, let's take a look. Do they have the same type of relationships with the correlation between the two? It's all there. But mostly for theory, we're going to do it construct level. Because most theories about the constructs are not about the measurement.
well,
That is,
I think what's important for us now, so some of these things, Pierce, I think it's probably more for us to decide how we want to do it. But at some point, once we're ready for the students to begin working on the task, to give them basically clear scope of work and instructions. And basically, I think it would be best if we told them, okay, you go into this system, you open these papers one by one, this is what you look for, this is how you record the results. Once you've gone through these whatever number of papers, you are basically done. And then maybe there will be some open-ended questions, like if you see a variable or a construct that is not in the list, then maybe mark it as other or come up with the best possible name. So because in this case, when we have so many people involved, it's better to have those clear instructions. First of all, because that's the first time they're working on a meta-analysis or a social loafing paper, but also because we may, end up with multiple conflicting terms or, so I'm not sure.
well, that's right. Yeah. And then this way, all our decisions are there. They're just like, this is the measure. This is the construct. This is how this is how they're kind of merged together. Do we want to change it? Sure, it's changed. Enter, thing recalculates, it's done, and you just move forward. But this visualization is there just simply to help people see what they're doing, right? But it happens at this level. We're going to be adding a lot of measurements, right? And we'll try and get as you can see, this is a newer one. It's got all the font problems figured out. But this is the idea here, is that as we go through the papers at the beginning, when we find a new measure that's relevant, we add it. And then we might wait to the end of the week to say what construct it goes with. And we'll have regular meetings about that. Eventually that part will be automated too. But that's another.
So then in terms of the next steps, then before we close this meeting, so what should the three here students do?
They should be going to free writing and doing the full text. You and I, Vash, should be thinking about getting the data entry ready for them.
Do we have any papers, do we have enough PDFs in the system already, or?
Well, yeah, we have right now, we have 2,181 papers.
So PDFs are already there. So if they click, it should
No
open.
PDFs. They need to get the PDFs.
So we need, because Charles got the PDFs, I think we have pretty much all of them in a separate folder. So should we then maybe start with attaching PDFs from the folder?
So once they're in there, they either enter PDFs, they take a look at it, and they try and make a decision about whether it has data regarding social loafing, free writing.
Then maybe let's start for the next week, I don't know, week or whatever time it will take, moving the PDFs and checking, basically screening, full text screening. So the only thing is, Pierce, can you maybe write up for us the instructions like step by step? So open MetaHub, go to full text. This is how, like, for example, how would you attach PDF if it's not attached yet? Like if I have it on my hard drive from Theo, for example. So just click here, yeah, as easy as that. So attach file, open and check, right?
That's right.
And then, so the only thing then the question would be, but it almost looks like we can do it all at the same time. We don't really care about the order, because once it's processed, it doesn't show up on the list anymore, right? So like,
That's
we don't
right.
have
Yeah,
to say
it
like,
just
you
goes
do the
through.
first 500, I do the next 500.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you can try playing around with the filters too, right? So, whether you've coded them all, whether they have PDFs or not.
Well, Pierce, I'll be honest again, I've seen the system many times, and I think by now I could just work off my memory, but even I would probably still not be entirely sure, like if I missed something, or maybe if it's not too much trouble for you, if you can literally just give us like step-by-step instructions. Like
Yeah, I
open
can.
this,
I
go
would
here.
be making a series of those.
And
We
then-
got,
So what I'll
That
do
would-
then, I'll get the PDFs in a shared Dropbox folder from Theo. And they already sent it to me, but for some reason they sent it in EndNotes and it doesn't open, the file doesn't open on my computer. I need to maybe get another copy or just basically get the PDFs. And so we'll just go one by one. So we open the PDFs, attach them, check for data. And then maybe I'll have another meeting once we have the instructions from you. Maybe I'll have another meeting with all three of them, or maybe I'll just do it myself and record, like commenting what I do. But then, yeah, I think we can start with that. And so the screening should be, probably will keep us busy for a couple of weeks at least, but that's, the next step anyway. So why not start there?
yeah.
Boss, can I make a suggestion for your Dropbox? Maybe we could have a subfolder in it that's like completed. So when we upload a PDF, we move
That's a
it.
good idea too, yeah. The problem again is always locating the file. So I think would be easier just to search for by the title. Like you get the full title, you get it in the search in your navigation. So we'll have to figure out what's the best way to locate them, because it will be still,
Yeah,
but it shouldn't be difficult. Like I guess as long as you put the title in search, yeah. And you're right, once it's attached, maybe just delete it from Dropbox altogether, right? So once it's in MetaHub keeps the actual PDF copy, right? It creates a copy. It's not just a link.
yeah, it's actually rather sophisticated. When we started this, we didn't have this feature. It's actually connected to my own Dropbox, which is actually creating a subfolder in there with these things.
So you have, but I assume you have like a pro subscription with a couple terabytes or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. We're doing it through the main server, but we ran out of we had 100 gigs and we ran out of that like in 2 days because people just right. So we said, okay, that's not working. What else can we do? And we came up with this one.
Then just to make sure that, so again, we're not, I know some people needed to leave, they said, so then, yes, so if you can just send us, I don't know, tonight, for you, it's only what, 5 p.m. So if it's not too late, if you can maybe send step-by-step instructions tonight or tomorrow, and we'll start screening during the title, full text screening. I'll coordinate with Charles and Theo about the PDFs. And then by that time, once we're done, I guess we'll be ready to move on, within those few weeks, everything else will be ready for the coding. So once we're done the screening. And so here's one more thing. So when we screen the PDFs for data, if I highlight something in the PDF, it will stay there, right? So once I save it, it will.
No, we don't have that capability. If you'd have to do it outside and then upload the new.
Yeah, the only thing is because once you're reading, the paper, once you see that that's the data you need, if you highlight it, it maybe then saves you time when you open it again for coding, kind of gets you right into the point. Like if you open.
Yeah, a lot of people would like just a highlight one, but
So it wouldn't say, okay, well, good to know. No
only one miracle at a time.
Mhm.
So it's but yeah, if you have it down there and you can upload a new version right on top of it.
So this time when it opened the file, so this one, it looks like it's opening the link. So it's not from your Dropbox, is it?
This is opening it from the Dropbox. So if you can see it here, it's a common PDF.
So even though dashboard dot whatever, hub meta. So, so it actually is going to your Dropbox. And so if you make changes to that PDF and close it, it will erase those changes. So it wouldn't keep it in.
If I put something new there, it would overwrite it.
But let's say, for example, if you open the file and just highlight something in the, let's say in the abstract that will be useful later.
Wouldn't be able to do that inside this platform yet.
Okay. That
You can ask for it, but it's
a useful function so that we don't have to look twice for the same data, so to speak.
yeah,
No big deal. So that's a minor issue. Then yeah. So once you send us the step-by-step instructions, I guess we'll start working on this and and then.
Well, I know some of you have to go, but if I can stick around for a little longer.
There's one more question. Does it keep track who did the coding, or does it allow for, like, I'm again trying to make sure that we are sort of equally distributed.
Well, it tracks people's decisions. I mean, I do have an activity, right? And I can see what everyone did.
So you can you have a way. I'm just making sure that again, like when the time will come to like some author order or something, like if some people end up doing more, or if we can have a way to track so that everybody ends up doing roughly the same amount.
Here I can see what everyone did, how much time they spent on it, and
Oh,
exactly.
okay, good to know, because Ben here was very active, so I suspect he will do 5 times as much work as everybody else. And so he'll probably want that have to be, recorded in some way. Or the other way
Oh,
around, maybe
is that a
he's just active,
challenge?
I don't know about
maybe
that.
he's active during the meetings, but will not do anything once the meeting's over. Who knows? So we want to keep an eye on.
I don't know if I'm playing around with it, but I'm not sure I would give you that much credit here.
I'm just trying to be funny here. But yeah, not a big deal. But at some point we want to make sure that sort of everybody contributes the same, or if somebody contributes more, which is great, we want to sort of reflect that in the authorship order, or whichever way we will be then organizing it. But yeah, it looks like it does keep track, so it should be.
It's beautiful, really. I mean, what we're doing right now is actually mining the scientific literature, right, for truth and discovery. It's kind of like the oil sands, really. It's a powerful, valuable commodity that's just lying there, but somebody has to process it. And that's what we're doing. So, and once you processed it into this, you've now made it to something that's really, really, handy for people. So, but there's, in truth, once this gets going, this is a finite number of articles, right? So, they talk about peak oil. There will be a peak in meta-analysis as our extraction methods get better and better. I could show you something that would actually, here, right? So import. There's a couple of ways when we get into this. One, if people can do a CSV file where they can pull it in. You can look at from a library, which will grow. But this one is one that we've been working on for a very, very long time. But it's we finally got it probably to some place that we're kind of somewhat happy about. So, like, for example, if I pull an article in there, right, and I just push import, and it says a few minutes, but we've actually got to run pretty fast. So it's more like about 20 seconds.
So what is it doing now?
Well, what we're doing is, having.
So it's automatically looking for correlations and extracting them.
That's, well, don't steal the punchline there,
Oh,
Bas.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to, because if that's what it's doing, that's a big deal. Oh yeah, so it saved me like half an hour right there, like literally.
So yeah, so it found within the matrix, within the paper, within all this, okay, pattern matched the matrix, optical scan, clipped it, optical characteristics scanned it, recognize what the row meant for mean and standard deviations, and then put it in. It's a perfect, no, I forgot the alphas around the diagonal, right? Could have added that there, right? So it's depends how much work we're going through it. And I've tried it with some things. Some areas and some journals it works great. Just the format just matches perfectly. Other ones it doesn't. I'd like it always to kind of run the background and see if it could do it automatically. But it's not smart enough to know employee enroll performance, what that means. You would actually have to tell it, because all it basically does is it's
I'll tell you.
there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Pierce, when I did it in Excel, each of the cells in the matrix is a separate row. Each row takes probably 2-3 minutes, depending on how fast you go. So the matrix like this with everything, that's about half an hour of work. So even if I have now to manually check and correct, it seems like instead of half an hour, it can be like you can be done with the paper in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and then we do pull down menus, we take the country, education level, whatever else we want, right? It can convert from DEFT scores, chi-square scores, right? Automatically to R.
Yeah, that will be extremely useful when the time comes to code. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm not going to say that because actually it's not the right paper for it, but
this alone was a big deal. Like how many hours I spent, you can't believe how many hours I spent doing that manually. And as I said, the worst part is that when you do it row by row, it's easy to make a mistake. It's easy to make an error.
Well, now you know what accountants felt like when they had to use a ledger, right?
Yeah.
But that's the way we used to start doing it. We actually did it with paper and write it down.
I need to run now. I'm left alone with the kids. My wife is visiting with my parents, so I need to take them now to the gym. So, but yes, Pierce, as the next step, maybe if you can send us those step-by-step instructions, just what needs to be done, we'll get at it right away. Then.
Yeah, okay, I'll go and make a video clip of it or something.
Okay,
Great.
all right, sounds very good. Thank you so much, everyone. So, yeah, then I'll talk to you later. And then I'll share the recording just in case once it's done, rendered.
Does anyone have any questions before I go? In which case you should make me a host or co-host before you.
Yeah. I already made you a co-host, yes.
All right, so I'll stick around if anyone has any questions.
Yeah.
Bye, Beth.
No questions means either everything's clear, no questions, or I'm so confused, I don't even know what to say here. So, but yeah, I think it's pretty clear and quite amazing, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, so Pierce, I'm designating you as a host in case you need to stop, to stay longer, but
Okay, yeah, sure.
I'll run, yes. Okay.